Good afternoon and welcome to the kickoff event of the Velocity India IT Services ecosystem. Over the last 4 months, we at Velocity Network Foundation, together with our member organizations that are active in India, have been working to understand the needs of the Indian education and employment market and to identify the key use cases and market segments that are most ripe for change. We've been nothing but short of astonished at the spirit of innovation in India. The level of energy and excitement has exceeded our expectations and continues to be inspirational. The openness for change and the speed in which new concepts and technologies are consumed is exceptional, and it's clear why India is and will continue to be such a global leader in information technology. The purpose of today's event is to introduce you and the India industry to the Velocity Network. We'll present our vision of a world of work where education and employment-related data is all digital and verifiable, removing an incredible amount of friction and waste that exists today. We'll provide a demo so you can see how individuals can curate their career records and share them in a trusted and frictionless way. And most importantly, members of the Velocity Network Foundation, leading companies in work tech and education tech, will share the opportunities they see and the solutions that they are deploying on the Velocity Network. Before I welcome our first speakers, I want to invite you each to take the first step in experiencing personally how verifiable digital credentials work. On the screen are instructions to download a verifiable enabled digital wallet. Please go ahead and download your wallet now or during as the speakers are talking. At the end of today's event, we'll have a surprise for you, your first verifiable digital credential. I will post this information in the chat in a minute, so if you haven't followed these instructions yet, they'll be available for you in the chat during our session. Lastly, during today's session, if you have any questions, please put them in the Zoom chat. We'll try to answer them all in real time during the event. And if for any reason we don't provide an answer during the event itself, we'll share a digest of all the questions and answers with everyone who's attending this event afterwards. We're excited to have so many leaders in the Indian IT services and education space with us today. We have a jam-packed event this afternoon with many speakers sharing multiple perspectives and announcing innovations and solutions designed specifically for you in the local India market. I'm sure you'll find these sessions interesting and informative. It's now my pleasure to welcome our first speaker, the founder and CEO of Velocity Network Foundation, Dragojevic, to introduce the Internet of Careers.
Thank you, Eitan. And thank you all for joining us as we launch the Internet of Careers to India. Let's start with articulating the problem that we're trying to solve. Hiring people based on what they say about themselves, about their own skills, identity, and education credentials has been terribly inefficient. Self-reported career records are unreliable and non-standardized. Misrepresentation is a common issue, and the need to verify applicants and employees' data adds unimaginable friction and cost to the labor market. This drives a several billion-dollar industry of screening services that, for the lack of a better solution, use manual 100-year-old processes of making phone calls and procuring data from siloed sources to compile a comprehensive verified portfolio of the individual's learning and employment records. It takes weeks, it's prone to errors and privacy violation, and simply not built for the modern world of work. Yet everything we need to do across the employment lifecycle, build pathways from education to employment, reskill 1 billion people, support broad adoption of platform work and open talent markets, all require processing individuals' trusted learning and career records. Yet we're still relying on self-reported, unverified resumes and online profiles as a source for candidate and employees' records. That is the one impediment for true digital transformation of our space. And this issue cuts to the core of our ability to build the future of work. Until we fix that broken data layer, underlying the global labor market, all other efforts will remain improvident. Thing is, the data is right there. It's with the person's past employers, with their school, with their professional association, or the contingent work platform they've been using. The problem is that all these data sources are siloed and disconnected, unstandardized, and lack interoperability. Yet the challenge of developing a conduit for the trusted exchange of career-related information involves interoperability and portability questions on a global scale, and has been too monumental in scale for the industry to contemplate, until now. Velocity Network Foundation was launched as the venue for the major stakeholders in the world of work to come together to fix the broken data layer underlying the global labor market. It's a nonprofit technology consortium supported by the largest vendors in the workforce and education tech markets. These participating vendors are used by 30% of employers across the globe to automate employment-related processes, and they're processing career-related records for over 1 billion lives every year. After 4 years of collaborative efforts orchestrated by the foundation, Velocity Network was deployed. It's a community-run technology powering the Internet of Careers, a decentralized data utility layer underlying the global labor market. It empowers people by giving them agency over their private records. It provides a new foundation for trust across the labor market with instant verification of career and education data shared by applicants, students, and employees. It's built for workforce and education tech vendors, enabling them to easily connect their software to the Internet of Careers to build innovative use cases and evaluate solutions. It enables global interoperability. For the first time in labor market history, data can travel freely across different workforce and education systems with end-to-end global interoperability. And it's controlled by no single entity, yet anyone can use it. So it's about people's right to own their career data. Velocity Utility Layer enables people to claim proofs of their employment history, educational background, skills, and qualification from their school or past employer. They privately store their verified records on career wallets and choose what to share with prospective employers. Individuals use this self-custody digital career identity to access better career opportunity and for faster and frictionless onboarding, all while maintaining their privacy. It's about fixing the data layer underlying the global labor market with instantly verifiable digital career identity. Organizations use it to accelerate recruitment, on onboarding and mobility, to enable true skill-based hiring, to enhance applicant and employee experience, and improve compliance with first-party data exchange. And it's about unleashing an explosion of innovation across the labor market. Velocity Utility Layer is built for workforce and education tech vendors. They easily connect their software to build innovative use cases that solves critical problems. Here's an example. A university, the issuer, generates a credential, a digital academic certificate, signs with its keys, and issues it to Sophia, the certificate owner. Parallel to issuing the credential to Sophia, the university also issues a cryptographic proof, the key, and writes it to the blockchain. When Sophia applies for a job and wants to prove her academic qualification to an employer, she shares the credential from her mobile wallet. The employer, the relying party, can then confirm the validity of the credential by checking it against the cryptographic key stored on the blockchain. The utility layer is controlled by no single entity, yet anyone can use it. That's the beauty of it. The decentralized architecture of the blockchain is what makes it possible. Dozens of independent industry incumbents already running Velocity blockchain nodes on mainnet. Each node is a server with a full copy of the Velocity blockchain data. These distributed nodes run by businesses all over the world that have been vetted by the Velocity Network Foundation provide resiliency to the Velocity Network infrastructure. It is therefore much less vulnerable to hacks and shutdowns. Remember that the blockchain data holds no personal identifiable information, only keys. Velocity also has a native coin, a utility token called VLC credits. New credits are issued only to contributors to the network. These would be issuers of credentials mainly, and node operators who secure the network. Credits are the lifeblood of Velocity Network. Every call from a relying party to the network to extract verification keys stored on chain requires paying a fee. Fees are paid in the form of credits only. This means relying parties need credits to verify credentials, and they pay cash to buy them on the exchange. The credits come from the contributors that earn those credits and enables them to monetize their contribution. Following 4 years of collaborative work, the network was made public earlier this year, and leading workforce and education tech vendors engaged in embedding use cases built on top of Velocity Network in their platforms. Dozens of leading software vendors to the workforce and education market, the largest background screening vendors, multiple wallet developers that build wallets compatible with Velocity protocols, and the leading staffing firms that join to accelerate their solutions to employer. Additional vendors are joining every month. Recognizing the gravitas of the disruption we're driving, prominent industry associations representing the largest labor market stakeholder groups have also joined as members of the Velocity Network Foundation to participate in the governance of the network and represent their constituencies. The American Council on Education and ACRO representing the U.S. post-secondary education system, SHRM, the Global Professional Association of HR Practitioners, the World Employment Confederation, the Global Professional Association of the Staffing Industry, and the International Organization of Employers and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation representing the employment sector. Many more such organizations are in the process of joining this movement. Early adopter industries across the globe are launching real-world ecosystems based on the Velocity Network. The future of work is coming, and fixing the broken data layer underpinning it is a lived reality for thousands of builders. For the Internet of Careers, we're now where the internet was in 1997, and the time to get involved is now. I want to thank you for listening. I wish you a productive session. Don't miss this once-in-a-generation revolution. Thank you, and back to you, Ethan.
Thanks, Gaurav. Now that we all have an initial understanding of the global challenge Velocity seeks to address and what the Internet of Careers is, let's zoom into India. I'd like to welcome Gaurav Gupta, Chief Growth Officer of EkStep Foundation, to discuss the challenges and opportunities in the India education and labor market. For those of you unfamiliar with EkStep, it's an innovative nonprofit foundation founded by Nandan Nilekani, Rohini Nilekani, and Shankar Marwada to create a learner-centric, technology-based platform to improve applied literacy and numeracy for millions of children in India. Welcome, Gaurav.
Good afternoon. I'm Gaurav Gupta. I'm the Chief Growth Officer at EkStep Foundation. EkStep Foundation is a not-for-profit organization which was started around 8 years back with the mission of enabling learning opportunities for more than 200 million children in the country. And by virtue of our background and experience, we also play a role in how technology can be leveraged in the context of addressing the challenges and the opportunities that lie in this particular space, both around education and skilling. Now, coming to the topic that I've been asked to speak about, which is to describe some of the challenges in the context of education and skilling, where especially something like verifiable digital credentials can have a real role to play, and how they can bring in trusted, reliable data. So just wanted to begin by sharing that, see, in India, only 8% of India's population gets jobs based on their education, right? So that pretty much tells us that there is a huge part of our population which is not given jobs based on their education backgrounds and so on and so forth. In fact, just to quote another number in this context, almost more than 90% of India's population works in the informal sector. And that's a huge number for a country like ours, which means that a lot of these people who are working probably as artisans, masons, and in different trades and professions, they don't really have a formal way of becoming a part of the workforce, right? So that, I think, in itself is a huge challenge in a country like ours, which is also an opportunity, because that means that is the potential of the market in India. When you not just look at the white collar jobs and hence sub 10% of our population which works in the formal sector, but also more than 90% of our population which works in the informal sector, and they don't have ways, means, or avenues via which they can their skills can be credentialed in a manner that's verifiable, and how it unlocks opportunities for them in the context of getting better jobs, better opportunities to skill themselves, upskill themselves, and so on and so forth. So that's one part of the spectrum, and I think linked to that is the other aspect, which is that given that a lot of this hiring happens in an informal way, it's not that it is the skill-based credential that an individual has which becomes a part of their resume and hence becomes a part of the jobs or the opportunities that they get. In fact, a lot of times hiring in India happens on the back of word of mouth or recommendations that come in from different people that you already know, and hence somebody who may have the requisite skill but may not have the valid credential and may not be connected to such opportunities may not really be getting his or her due in terms of being able to get that position or that opportunity. And in fact, as I speak this number, it's not just that people don't have the credential for the skilling or the education background that they have. They don't even have a resume which organizes that information, making it easy when it comes to for someone who's screening those individuals to hire them. Of course, a lot of initiatives are being taken in the country, and many platforms have come in the space in terms of helping organize this. But I think this aspect of making that skill and that education background that people have verifiable digitally has many advantages. Now, let me quote another number in this context, that even of those who have a resume, the incidence of people faking a skill on that resume is somewhere between 10 to 30%, right? And that's a huge number. Now, of course, besides not just making it difficult for the hiring people to assess whether the person has the right skill, it also increases the cost, because when you discover that later, the cost of onboarding that person, having that person in the mix, and then losing trust later based on what they claimed as a fake thing on their resume becomes a major problem. And this, of course, is in the background of doing different types of background verification checks, which on their own take a significant amount of money and time and resources. There are many different avenues to do that, but nothing which really do it at very quick speed and at a fraction of a cost, and in a fashion that it becomes really trustworthy, so that the source from where you are getting that information about the skilling or the education or the work experience related background of that person can be easily verified. Now, this, of course, is also linked to another challenge or a problem. I'm sure all of us are aware of the kind of talent crunch that we have experienced in India, especially in technology as a sector. Do we think that it's primarily a function of India not having enough skilled people who should be able to do that job? I think there is a clear thought around this, that it is also linked to the fact that a lot of people who may have the skills are not easily discoverable in this context. Why so? Because again, they don't have a verifiable digital credential which can be easily verified to assess the skills that people have and hence discover them, which can easily help India tide over the talent crunch that it has. Somewhere, I think the problem is also linked to the way we hire people and the way people still put together their resumes. I think a lot of innovation can happen in this space in terms of how not just the skills, educations, and experience can become verifiable, but also the way hiring happens. So what's the new way by which you're able to easily discover potential hires for yourself? What is an easy way via which these individuals can showcase, the skills and the experience that they have, the ways by which they can easily monetize the credentials that they have to increase their earning potential. I think all of these are linked, and probably time has come to evolve the way things happen in the context of hiring. Now, having said that, knowing the fact that of course, something like a verifiable digital credential and easy discovery of skills and opportunities for people is both extremely relevant in the context of skilling and education. Let me also just share a quick slide to highlight how something like this is actually there as an opportunity in many different sectors beyond skilling and education. Now, as you see the slide, and of course, I've mentioned here only a few of these verifiable credentials that one may have, which is in the context of proof of training or skilling, through proof of work, the proof of reputation of an individual, or the proof of education that they can produce. But the use cases are many, right? It actually goes beyond these kind of proofs. In fact, India is one of the biggest, world's largest issuer of verifiable credentials in the form of identity. Aadhaar, a Government of India initiative, has more than 1.3 billion plus people have verifiable digital credentials of their identity, which has been used to ensure that direct benefit transfers can easily reach the masses, and at the same time save more than, it has helped the government save more than $30 billion in terms of costs. Likewise, if you look at vaccination, India has more than 2 billion plus people who, 2 billion plus vaccination certificates being given to people on the back of, the multiple doses of vaccination they took, which makes it easily verifiable that, this person has been, vaccinated, and that had its own set of use cases. Right. So likewise, there are many different use cases which pop up in the context of marriage and birth records, land records, even, in the current times of infodemic, how do you deal with newsworthy or critical news items which become, trustworthy in that context? And of course, like in the context of skilling and education, skilling, work and education, pay slips, work achievement certificates, education records, and so on and so forth, a lot of which also become useful in the context of financial transactions, etc., that people do. So I think the time has come to evolve and go beyond what we may have done in the past, which is to put a lens on the future and define the way forward, leveraging the power of technology. And in that context, hence, making trust fluid in the ecosystem across diverse use cases where verifiability of the digital credentials and hence trustworthy data can come into play to power many different scenarios. Thank you.
Thank you, Gaurav, for the illuminating presentation. I learned a lot from that. I really appreciate it. It's obvious and clear that new solutions are needed to continue to develop the vast Indian talent pool, and to ensure that everyone and anyone can present their education, their skills, their career experiences in a trusted and verifiable manner, and participate in the growing labor market in a more effective way with less friction. Now that we've heard a bit about the background of Velocity and the challenges it seeks to address, I think it's time to show you how it really works, to demonstrate the user experience and how an individual can curate and share their career and education credentials I'd like to invite Andres Olave, Velocity's Chief Technology Officer, to show us a demo. Welcome, Andres.
Hi there, my name's Andres, CTO of Velocity, and I'm really happy to share with you the hard work of all the engineering team at Velocity that is making the network's vision become a reality. This demo is about a project manager called Andrew Hall, who wants to take the next steps in his IT career. What I want you to learn during this demo is that an individual like Andrew has a career wallet that contains many credentials. Some are identity and contact details, but the majority of it are his degrees and work history, assessments, courses, licenses, certifications, and so on. They are all grouped as credentials. When applying for jobs, for further education, or any other organization that's connected to the network offering a service, he can send a customizable set of digital credentials using his Velocity Career Wallet. It's super easy to use and a natural experience for those that are used to using smartphones. And what's important as well is that his privacy is preserved throughout. In particular, his current employer will never know he's applying for another job. Now, for employers or schools that join the Velocity network, one, if they're issuing, they're giving a great, modern, sleek experience to their people. But two, if they're receiving those credentials, then unlike traditional CVs or taking applications via the web, information is quick to obtain and can be trusted. It's far more efficient hiring process. And what's really important for everyone involved is that all those transactions that are taking place with those credentials are 100% secure. Okay, so what's this demo about? Andrew Hall has been working at Microsoft for 8 years and is getting itchy feet. He has seen opportunities for a more senior role at both Google and Tesla. And is looking, which has a great fit for his skills. So he wants to apply using his Velocity Career Wallet. To meet the requirements of the application requires getting his degree from the University of Basel, followed by employment history from his current role at Microsoft. Additionally, he got a great score in a leadership assessment that he took a few years ago, and he wants to get that credential to be able to share it and help him stand out from the crowd. Okay, so he starts by downloading our wallet, and now I'm going to start screen sharing. Okay, so just one moment while I keep adjusting things. Okay, so what I first want to show you is this is what the Career Wallet's profile screen looks like. You can see you have a number of folders for different career credentials that you have. The identity credentials are super important, of course. You can see that he's got his email address, phone number, and passport details. Now, once Andrew obtains these identity credentials, every employer, educator, everyone connected to the network can use these credentials to securely identify him. Now, to get the email and phone credentials, the bottom two, they can be attained basically by receiving a verification code to that email or phone and typing it in, just like signing up to WhatsApp. In the cases of a more formal identity document like passport or driver's license or ID cards, to obtain those requires going through an online KYC process similar to signing up to a digital bank. A scan is taken of the document as well as the person holding that document. All right, so I'm going to get started. I'm going to get out of identity, and now we're going to claim our first credential from the University of Basel. as you'll recall. Now, he graduated from there in 2014. So first, he's just going to search for the university, select it. And at this point in time, a direct connection is established between the student management system and his Velocity Career Wallet. There's no intermediary. Now, they want to get a copy of his email address and passport. So we're going to select those from the screen here. You'll note, and this is true of all times that someone shares a credential in the Velocity Career Wallet, there are terms and conditions that the sharing is governed by, and the person can review those and then agree to them and share. So at this point in time, he's being identified by the university, and receiving that passport is just equivalent to getting a physical copy of that passport as far as they're concerned. He's verified a match and the university sends him this offer. Now he can review the details that are contained within here. And if there's anything wrong, he can contact the university and get an updated offer. But he reviews it quickly, sees the major is correct, the name is correct, and so on. And the degree is correct, Bachelor of Science. So he wants to accept the credential. Now, during this period, public key cryptography has been used to digitally sign the credential, and the credential is anchored to the blockchain, enabling a 5-check verification for any organization that Andrew subsequently shares the credential with in the future. An important element of all credentials is that they can be revoked. And this is for the case where, say, for example, in a university situation, someone's found to cheat on an exam or plagiarize. The university needs to be able to revoke that credential, and that's supported on the network and makes the credential effectively invalid. Now, the credential itself is here. It's in a good state, right? Andrew isn't the cheater. And we can see all the details are here as we have, but now it's a signed credential anchored to the Velocity Network blockchain. All right, so let's see issuing just one more time. And so what we're going to do is get everything he wants from Microsoft in one go. Microsoft have a lot less that they're looking for. They just need the email address to identify him for his credentials. He agrees to T's and C's, shares them with Microsoft. And you can see he's got his current role is at the top. His previous role, his initial role there until 2017, he was working as a technical project manager. Now he's a senior. And also the assessment has been returned. So all this is connected into Microsoft's HR systems. So it can get credentials of different types at the same time. And you'll note about assessment, something interesting is that assessments have both an overall score, here 8.9, but also have many different dimensions, such as credibility and assertiveness. And you can have as many dimensions as you need, which correspond to the components of the assessment itself. Okay, so he's happy with all those and accepts them. And so again, we're saving, those are digitally signed now and getting anchored to the blockchain. We now see the profile screen has been updated. We have 2 employment history credentials and 1 assessment as expected. So let's now look at what it looks like to apply for Andrew. So we're going to go to the Google Careers website, and he's found a great job, strategy project leader at Google Cloud. He wants to apply with Velocity. He clicks on the link that Google have there. It's just a small variant on their current process that requires form filling. And instead, he scans his QR code, and you saw that it popped up with that it had identified Google. The app had identified Google, and this helps Andrew know that, yep, the counterparty that I'm sending my credentials to is a real Google, not some fraudster. Okay, so the next step here is very similar to what we saw earlier. He needs to share, but we've got a lot more things to share now, not just identity, but all his career credentials. So we'll go through, shares his email and phone, shares his education, shares those roles that he's had and the assessment, agrees to terms and conditions. This time the duration is for 3 months that data will be retained for. And you can see it all happened very quickly. The data is now over in Google's ATS system. And at that point in time, the data has gone through what's called a credentialing agent, and that does what are called the 5 checks that are enabled by anchoring the credential to the blockchain. Those 5 checks are checking that the data within that each credential hasn't been tampered or changed in any way, checking that the issuer is trustworthy. So those really came from Microsoft. It really came from the University of Basel, right? Checking the credential wasn't revoked for whatever reason. Licenses can be revoked, but as I also mentioned, education degrees can be revoked. Checking that say a license hasn't expired. And finally, that Andrew really is the owner of all those credentials. And he proves that by digitally signing what's called a challenge. And finally, it doesn't notify. It's important that it doesn't notify Andrew if any of those fail. It's secret information to the organization. And secondly, it also doesn't notify any of those original issuers that Andrew has applied for a job or any checks need to be done. Microsoft does not know he's applying for a new job. After sharing, Andrew can review everything that he has shared at any point in time afterwards, right? So here we have the record showing, and he can go through and see what he shared. So we can do the same thing now, just so you can see it again one more time, with the role at Tesla. And it's another senior program management role. Gets a disclosure request from Tesla. He selects all his identity documents, his education documents, his employment history credentials, and finally his assessment. Agrees to T's and C's and shares them, and it's boom, super quick. So I hope you've learned a few things today. What I'd hope you'd be able to take away is that for individuals, this is super easy. It's easy to receive and to control what's happening with your personal data, with your credentials. It's secure. It's only going to the organizations that you want, and your privacy is respected. The organizations, our previous issuers, don't know anything that's happening on this network. There's no connection retained. And for organizations, you can get trusted high quality data now. It's not LinkedIn, it's not someone's CV, which contain whatever they want to write in there. And it's efficient. You're managing your risk and you're saving time and money. So I hope you've learned a little of what it means to be part of the Velocity Network today as an individual or as an organization. And I hope that makes you really enthusiastic to join us and become part of this HR revolution.
Thanks, Andres, for the fantastic demo. Hopefully, everyone now has a better feeling of what this looks like and how it feels. Now, and how it's going to affect the labor market. We already have some questions from some of you in the chat. I want to ask you all to continue to ask those questions and share those with us, and we'll respond to them during the meeting. I want to remind you that you can experience what Andres just showed personally in real life during this event today by downloading the Velocity-enabled wallet during the sessions, so that at the end of the session, we can issue you your first verifiable credential. The instructions for that are in the chat. So now that we have a better understanding of what Velocity Network is, It's time to hear more from members of the Velocity Network Foundation about the opportunities that they see in the market, how they're leveraging this innovation to create better products and services for you, their customers. Ollie Henderson, the head of marketing for the Velocity Network Foundation, will moderate today's panel with 4 outstanding leaders from organizations that are engaged with Velocity. Ollie, take it away.
Thank you, Eitan, and a very warm welcome to everyone watching and to our expert panel guests. Now, the purpose of this session is to hear how leading members of the Velocity Network Foundation are approaching the opportunities created by the Velocity Network, and in particular, to understand more about their plans to deploy products and services which leverage verifiable credentials issued on the network. And to do that, I'm delighted to welcome a team of amazing leaders from 4 of our members. James Hunsrao is Vice President and General Manager at Cisive. Meeta Karanth is the Vice President at Foundit. Marcel Solomon is General Manager of HireRight India, and Praveen Rao is Director of Marketing at SAP India. So welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So each of you represents a company with a unique perspective on the human capital management space. But what's common to each of those businesses is the positive impact that verifiable credentials are having and will have in the future. So with that in mind, I thought I'd start with a broad question about the new possibilities presented by Velocity for your organizations and its customers and employees. So James, let's start with you. Cisive's focused on background screening. What are the clearest opportunities you can see in your industry?
Sure, thanks, and thanks for having me here. So I'll start off with, this shift in the paradigm in the world of work is definitely coming. No matter what we did, right? I mean, so we can either drive the bus or be run over by it, and we choose to be at the forefront. And the other thing is that the decades-old resume verification process has to change. There's too much friction today in the workforce, needless to mention the challenges we all faced during the COVID lockdowns, and especially in the highly regulated verticals that we are serving our clients. Our clients are demanding faster turnaround time, getting people in healthcare like to the bedside faster, and the banking helping other customers faster, just being more nimble in getting the right talent and the right roles faster. And so if we're going to play in that space and we're going to serve our customers as well, we'll need to be finding solutions like this where we can have instantaneous verifications. We can allow our customers to be disruptive through a partnership with Cisive, and we strongly believe that we can help to, stop focusing so much just on data acquisition and the traditional sense, and start to focus on data curation, the right personas, the right use cases along the career continuum. I hope that makes sense. That's how I feel that Cisive as a leader in the space of background screening have the responsibility to shape the future. And that's why we care so much and why we are playing a leading position in helping to build solutions to make instantaneous verification of self-sovereign credentials as possible. Before I pass it back to you, Ollie, I'd just like to stress that this is a generational thing, which no employer should ignore. The sooner you adopt and embrace the Internet of Careers, the sooner you'll get to appreciate the amazing benefits from this next-gen tech. So thanks. Back to you, Ollie.
Great way to start. Thanks, James. Meeta, obviously you're looking at the talent space from everywhere, from candidates looking for opportunities and then matching those with companies who are trying to find the best talent. So what opportunities do you see, and what immediately springs to mind?
Sure, and thanks for having me on this panel, and great to be talking about something so cutting edge. Before I get into that, let me also, just for the interest of the audience, kind of tell you a little bit about Foundit here, because Foundit was Monster India and APAC before, and so we've rebranded, right? Now, the reason I say that is because while we have changed the way we approach our company, one of the key things over here for us is to actually cater to both sides of our two-sided marketplace, right? The candidates and the recruiters or companies in a much more holistic manner. So we say we're moving from just being a job board to a talent platform, right? And so that means that we've got to do a lot more, better, faster, at a higher quality for both sides, both our stakeholders, right? And that's why we ended up joining the Velocity Foundation, because we think that the whole ecosystem of credentialing is really critical for achieving better customer experience, better trust, better process efficiency across the board, right? Whether it is within our company from our own operations point of view, as well as for our customers and for our candidates or job seekers. So we see a lot of opportunities, both as consumers of data from the network, as well as providers of data, just because we have the unique aggregator vantage point, being a job board now, a talent platform, right? So that's how we are looking at it, as consumers as well as aggregators, and there'll be different solutions that we could potentially do at different points in time.
Right, that's really helpful. And Praveen, SAP clearly have a global outlook, but I'm really intrigued because SAP has been a big supporter of Velocity and has already made a lot of strides in innovation around issuing credentials, both to employees but also to partners. I mean, when you're thinking about this, when you're having conversations internally, how do you see this? How is it going to impact your customers? How's it going to impact on the people within the organization?
Thank you, Ollie, for that. And I'm really happy to be in this panel today. Before I answer your question, I wish to talk about something which is very macro in nature and which is having a very, very disruptive and a sea change kind of a factor in a region like Asia Pacific and mostly in India. I think a lot of changed over the last 3 years. We are perhaps one of the youngest nation when it comes to the population, which is entering workforce every year. That's in millions. Number one. Number two, the whole ecosystem of skill is changing. Your education was the basic one with which you entered the workforce, and you continued and you learned on the job. But I think what is further changing now is the whole reskilling that has been adopted by all and sundry. It's just not the big corporations, but even the mid-sized companies are relooking at reskilling very, very seriously, thanks to the changing ecosystem of skills around us. And the third is the nature of employment. We all hear a lot of things about gig employment, gig projects, and so on and so forth. So the very nature of employment needs to be relooked at. You're just not hiring full-time employees, you're hiring contractors, you're hiring people on project, you're hiring commissioning people for a very short span of work, right? Now, with all of that happening, verifiable credentials is rather a must-have phenomena that everybody must look up to. And this would ease out so many things, both for the candidates as well as for the companies who are hiring them either as a full-time or a part-time worker. Because for a part-time worker, please understand that big companies often hesitate because they do not know their background, they do not know whether they're still working, not working somewhere. Their credentials might not be fully verifiable. So a verifiable credential is a boon to all these companies. And now talking about SAP, we have been at the forefront of providing employee experience solutions. We have several solutions, SuccessFactors being one of them. Now, we as a forerunner values this, and integrating this into our framework over a period of time would ease out several infrastructural bottlenecks that we see and would make the entire experience, be it for the recruiting manager, the candidate, and for that matter, the existing employees who gets often rewarded for upscaling and progressing their career development within an organization much simpler.
Great, thank you. Marcel, we've spoken before about these themes, so I know you think about this a lot, and as do HireRight. So really interested to get your take on the opportunities.
Thanks, Ollie. First of all, thank you for inviting me to this esteemed panel. Before we dive into the opportunities that we have at hand in India, I'd like to just give a quick introduction about HireRight. We are a leading global provider of technology-driven workforce risk management and compliance solutions. We provide comprehensive background screening services to approximately 39,000 customers across the globe. Our services offered is via a unified global software and data platform that integrates into our customers' human capital management systems. So what does this do? This enables a very highly effective and efficient workflow for hiring, onboarding, and monitoring of these candidates. Thus, it really reflects our three key focuses with our customers, which is speed, precision, and innovation. Now, coming more to the opportunity, as you're all aware, India is one of the fastest growing markets and has a GDP over $3.5 trillion and with a yearly growth over 6.5% year on year. The services segment, which is the segment that we're really looking at in India, where you see a lot of employment, has about 55% of the GDP. And of that, we have the outsourcing, which is IT and BPO. It contributes to 7.5% of the GDP. Now, you must be wondering why I'm talking about this. It's because hiring is significantly high in this sector. And the challenge is always to onboard candidates faster, quicker, to reduce billing time, and therefore it impacts revenue. Now, not just this sector, but all the other sectors are important. So to summarize the Indian market, what it needs is onboarding candidates faster, which is basically speed, and also having it at the highest quality, which is precision. So the biggest opportunity is to accelerate employment and education verification along with quality.
Great. Well, yeah, thank you. And that is a wonderful overview of the opportunities. Thanks to all of you. I mean, the natural next step is to start thinking about what it means for the future, and particularly in terms of product development. So I think maybe at this stage, let's go into how each of your organizations are thinking about designing new approaches, new products, which can leverage the possibilities of verifiable credentials. Marcel, let's go back to you on this one, Marcel, as you went last on the previous round.
Sure, thanks, Ali. And this is a great question. If you really look at it, there are a lot of opportunities, but as of now, while we cannot probably comment on future products or services that we're planning or developing right now. However, in general, we always are focused on partnering with the customers to identify new opportunities and new solutions, both in India and around the globe. And ultimately, we are tackling the question, which I just talked about earlier, is how do we help onboard candidates faster and help with reduced time to hire? And especially during this time, India is going through a very, very critical growth phase in which there are a lot of changes in the data privacy laws. Now, this is not just a product issue, in my point of view. It is more got to do with the overall employment ecosystem. So HireRight is really proud to partner with others in the industry to explore solutions, particularly around the employment and education turnaround time. And this includes our partnership with Velocity Foundation.
Thank you. Praveen, clearly SAP, as I said before, it's an international company with many different business units. There's going to be a lot of innovation and product development going on in various different areas, but specifically to do with verifiable credentials and velocity in the context of this conversation. What can you share with us around how the thinking is developing around product development, and either being specific or perhaps getting towards the value proposition? What is it going to really create, and what's the timeline possibly for developing those ideas?
Sure. So while I can't comment about the development life cycle and what people must expect from the SAP products in the times to come, unless it is out, I can't officially talk about it. But let me give you some directions here. Fact of the matter is that today, majority of the companies, irrespective of their size and industry, they are looking at creating more intuitive environment for rewarding their employees and planning their employees' growth cycle in an organization. Now, when they're learning on the job, obviously the organization is well in control of things. But when an employee is upskilling or putting up some additional skills which could help him or her take up the next roles in the company, which is completely outside the existing skill sets of an employee, think about it from that perspective. And therefore, we as SAP believes that there has to be an open ecosystem wherein an employee's verifiable credentials should be brought in a very significant way. Whereas when an employee is on her journey to pick up additional skills and learnings, if those verifiable credentials with an employee's permission can be integrated into the entire ecosystem and benefits the manager, the existing organization, or for that matter, the future organizations, if that can help with the help of SAP as a platform, I think that would be an incredible thing to expect. Because today, majority of the Fortune 100 companies uses one or more of SAP's technology, which is given, but there is a thriving ecosystem of enablers. There are companies which are job boards. There are companies which are pure play into verification and background. I mean, Marcellus, Meeta, James, you are representative of those ecosystems. So idea is to create an open ecosystem over a period of time where we bring in some of these technologies seamlessly to help everyone in the ecosystem benefit from it. And from a timelines perspective, well, it is happening now. Like I said, I would not be able to comment when is the next release and what would happen, but these things are very much in vogue as far as our development is concerned.
Absolutely. Now, you raise a great point, and that this is an opportunity, isn't it, for everyone in the market? You know, by everyone from the individuals, from individual talent, all the way through to organisations. And I think, you know, as you all suggested, this is happening now, but it's a long-term project, and it's something that we should all be collaborating on. And I think if we do that properly, then that is where we will genuinely create new opportunities which will affect millions. Now, Meeta, you touched on before some of the benefits that verifiable credentials can bring to the candidate experience, and then flowing all the way through to employee experience. How do you think about potential product development? I mean, are there ways in which this is actually impacting on people's experience now, and you know, what will it take to begin moving people along that journey and allowing them to create that positive experience?
Yeah, so I think the way we look at hiring, right? There are three funnels, and Polly, you and I had this conversation before. There are three parts of the funnel. There's top of the funnel, which involves sourcing, shortlisting, and the initial engagement to test a candidate's interest in a particular job. There's middle of the funnel, which is really once a candidate expresses interest, then there's a whole bunch of assessments, interviews, etc. that happens that do some amount of skill verification and fit verification, right? So that's the second part. The third part is the bottom of the funnel, which is offer and post-offer, onboarding, background verification, and all of that, but till the point of joining. Now, what we see is that with technology and verified credentials being one of them, the activities that happen in a particular sequence across the stages of funnel will actually shift. So, for example, the industry is heading in a direction where skill verification will become important much earlier in the funnel, right? And so we think that from a verified credentials point of view, that skill information, we as an aggregator play at Foundit can actually provide visibility on candidate skill levels, sort of relative scaling, etc., at the top of the funnel. Therefore, helping recruiters and companies not waste time on screening candidates that are not going to fit in, right? And I think that's one big area that we're already working on ourselves. And I think now we just have to figure out how we bring in the whole velocity network into it. But that's one thing that we see is a big shift that is going to happen, skill-based hiring. And the more up in the funnel you can take it, the better it is for both sides, right? So that's one. Then we also think from an operational and a trust point of view. I mentioned trust earlier, right? You sometimes, as a job board, you end up having profiles that are not completely legitimate, and verified credentials can actually help us weed those out much more earlier in the process, and therefore build trust with our customers, companies that are hiring, right? I think that's a very big use case that we are looking at, and I think that probably be the lowest hanging fruit that we would work on, right? And the third one that we are thinking of right now is the aspect of a career wallet. From a candidate point of view, if we are able to digitize their experience with in a token or with a click of a button on an app, that they can share this with any company at whichever stage of the funnel of the hiring process they are in, with an organization, it can actually save both sides a lot of time and therefore also improve customer experience on both ends, right? So those are the 3-4 things that we are thinking of. We are fairly at an early stage on some of them, but we've been thinking about these and doing our own developments for a while on all of them. With the Velocity network now, I think we're going to take this to the next level and see how we can make it a more ecosystem play that actually takes it faster and to a larger audience more quickly. Right? That's what we're thinking of.
Brilliant, exciting, fantastic. And James, interestingly, Cisive already has a solution live on Velocity in the US. It's focused on the US healthcare industry. Can you share a bit about that deployment? Are there any lessons that Cisive are learning that will be applicable to the Indian market and specifically to the IT services industry as we go into 2023 and beyond?
Certainly. I think the HCA rollout would be a perfect showcase of the overall success of the adoption so far. First of all, a bit on the context here in terms of the size of a HCA. We're talking about a huge population, 300,000 individuals, so that's quite decent and sizable. It's one of the leading providers of healthcare services in the US, and is comprised of north of 180 hospitals and 2,300 sites of care, in 20 states, as well as in the UK. I would say there's a few things definitely worth sharing with the audience here, and that is, understanding, the DNA of the client that you engage with, because HCA is regarded as a leader in their field, and they love innovation, and they're great partners for us, right? And to do this, it takes partnership on both sides. So both the client and we internally have to have dedicated people, which is very important, ready to, really engage on this and move it forward. Because, they're dealing with really intense financial requirements, hardships, in some cases, nursing strikes, recruitment challenges through a pandemic wasn't easy. All of these things that I'm sure that the IT services groups aren't immune to either, right? But we really had to know that we were going to have continuous engagement, and that also meant for ourselves as well since day one. Having people willing to show up every week and, or every 2 weeks for meetings and have meaningful updates and be ready to promote these initiatives within our organizations and get people to the table when we needed to, which was critical as well. We're seeing an incredible adoption rate and interest rate, which is very encouraging, with folks who absolutely want to claim their verifiable credentials. Various opportunities for us to, capitalize on, and as the participation heightens further, I'm very sure there's so much more to achieve. And to achieve that, it cannot be done single-handedly. That's why this very collaborative partnership with all the different types of tools, kits, what and what not, provided by Velocity Foundation really enabled that success so far. So I think all in all, in summary, we're very pleased with how everything is progressing, and also thankful to Velocity Foundation. Back to you, Ollie.
Thank you, James. In fact, thank you to all of you, Meeta, Praveen, Marcel, James. Thank you very much. Your insights are indispensable to understanding how network participants are moving forward and deploying solutions on the Velocity network. So I'm excited to see these plans continue to evolve in the coming months and years. And with that, the panel discussion is complete, and I'd like to hand back to Eitan.
Thanks, Ollie. And thank you, Meeta, Marcel, Praveen, and James for your terrific insights. I particularly want to mark what Meeta was saying about the change in the pipeline, and how the use of verifiable credentials will accelerate the change in the order and activities that organizations do in talent acquisition. And I love the description that Meeta provided of moving skills-based evaluation and the ability to know individuals, what their skills are much earlier in the process in a trusted and effective way. So we're here, we've heard what a few of our members, large organizations operating in the industry are planning on doing. Now let's actually hear some exciting things already happening in India. Our next two speakers will be communicating and sharing some of their activities that are already going on these days to deploy solutions in the local market. Our next speaker is Sanjoe Jose, the CEO of Talview. Talview has recently launched its initial solutions on velocity in an event they held 2 weeks ago, and are working with on issuing assessments on velocity with some really exciting use cases in the IT services market. Sanjoe is invited Vikram Kapoor, the VP of Human Resources at Technicolor Creative Studios, to join him for this session. Welcome, Sanjoe and Vikrant.
Excited to be at the launch of Velocity Career Network in India. I have with me Vikrant, who is a dear friend and has been an industry veteran when it comes to technology adoption in the IT services space. Very excited to have you with us today, Vikrant. And I've been, and Talview has been part of the journey with Velocity for a few months now, and we've seen how the power of a career network or an internet of careers is capable of transforming how industries operate, especially when it comes to talent management in countries like US, where there has been some traction. And it's exciting that that same power and same network is now launching for the IT service industry, an industry we have been part of for many years, and where there are glaring issues around lack of verified credentials, which leads to significant inefficiencies in the system. But I think there is no one better than me to talk about that problem statement and how this might work for the industry than Vikrant. Vikrant, would love to have you do a quick intro of yourself for the audience, and then we can discuss different aspects of the Velocity platform.
Sure. Thank you, Sanjoe. And thanks for having me over for this conversation. I'm pretty excited about the agenda that Velocity and Talview have put forward. I think it can be path-breaking for the industry. But very quickly, a quick introduction for the viewers of this webinar. I'm Vikrant, head of HR for Asia Pacific for a firm called Technicolor Creative Studios. We're the makers of the world's most iconic movies across the globe. But yes, Sanjoe, over to you. Happy to get started.
Wonderful. So Vikrant, you've been at the forefront of, I would say, talent management and especially technology adoption from a talent management standpoint in the IT service industry for many years now. And I'm sure you know what the problem statements are when it comes to inefficiencies because of lack of verified credentials in the industry today. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. I think it's an extremely pertinent problem. One of the things before we really start talking about verifying credentials, I think we have, through technology, been able to solve significant part of people practices, recruiting practices. But I think there's a couple of frontiers which are forward-looking, which are like necessary evils for an organization, such as the background verification, which has a huge impact on the cycle time, the recruiting cycle time and the candidate experience. And I think there's another space, that I'm particularly excited about the work that Velocity and Talview are doing in terms of the warm talent pool, building that, right? So I think these are two frontiers that I agree with you are absolutely ahead of us. Essentially, how do we, from the first perspective, especially in India, and in fact, beyond India, across the globe, right? The whole process of verifying a candidate's credential before they become an employee is quite laborious. Right? It's pretty intensive, a lot of documentation. In India, it takes a whole lot of 4 to 5 weeks before it can be concluded, adding to the cycle time, recruiting cycle time. In other parts of the world, it just requires significant documentation. So the whole idea of a consolidated verified credential that can be reused and reused by a candidate across the firms that they have applied for, I think that's going to be a huge game changer from a candidate experience. I think the second use case that you're solving for with this partnership, I think that is something that the industry really has to stand up and make a note of, because it's so powerful. Sanjoe, the fact that as a candidate, when I'm looking for a new job, I apply at multiple firms, maybe 5 firms, and out of those 5 firms, 3 firms select me. So, I'm like gold dust if I've been selected at 3 of my 5 choice of firms. However, it's quite a harrowing experience for me as a candidate to go through literally 5-step interview process with each of those firms. Literally, as a candidate, I probably go through a sequence of 25 interviews with 5 different firms. If we could get the industry to a point where for candidates who've been successful through the interview process, whether or not the final offer works out, right? That's never a guarantee, right? Because from a compensation perspective, from multiple other perspectives, a candidate and a firm will exercise their choice, even with candidates who've literally cleared all of the interview rounds. So the point is, if that consolidation of insights around a candidate's performance through the interview process, if that can be put together, I think the impact that it will have for a future employer, I'm assuming if the credentials are strong, recorded, verifiable, a future employer may not need to conduct those 5 interviews. Given candidate X has already cleared interviews at 3 major firms, or 3 firms which are boutique, specialized in their spaces. I mean, that is going to have a profound impact on the recruiting cycle. I think it's a massive, massive use case for the industry.
Wonderful. And I completely agree with you on how harrowing the experience is for candidates, because we see that as the preferred platform of choice for many of the leading IT service organizations who are all, for a lack of better words, scrubbing the same talent pool for their talent acquisition requirements.
Yep.
You see the same candidate is often going through the same interview process or the same assessments across organizations, and there's a lot of repetition of work which is happening. And if there's a way in which if you've assessed a candidate and for whatever reason, if the candidate did not end up joining, if you could release that data into a common pool where everybody could benefit from that, and obviously the candidate could benefit from that, then that we believe, based on our vantage point, that it would lead to significant efficiency in the hiring process. And that's where Talview has been very excited to collaborate with Velocity, and we are working very closely with them to launch what we calling the Talview Talent Exchange, which is like Vikrant, you pointed out, as a warm pool of candidates where industry could share candidates whom they have assessed but did not end up hiring. And then that cross sharing will, by sharing a candidate, you also get to access another candidate from the pool. So that unlocks significant efficiency for everybody. So Vikrant, when you think about a solution like this, how do you think, what is required to make it viable? Like it's like a marketplace, right? So what are your thoughts in terms of how the industry can make this viable and there is long-term success for a platform like this?
I think at a very fundamental level, this requires exchange of information and a willingness to make that information available. I think it's a two-way street, really, for a candidate to stand up and say, yes, that I'm comfortable with my credentials being verified credentials being shared with this bunch of firms that I'm applying at. And also for firms to feel confident of their own hiring decision. Yeah. That yes, I've taken a good hiring decision. The person may not have been able to join my firm because of XYZ reasons, and which is incidental to both the firm and the candidate. But the fact that I'm confident of my recruiting process to say that, yes, Vikrant, the candidate, was successful at our interview discussions, right? Putting that information out there. And of course, I think at the end of the day, it is eventually a candidate's decision to let a future firm, a prospective employer be able to use that data. Yes, I think that's a critical one. And of course, the security and the verifiability, I don't know if that's a word, but verifiability of the data which has been submitted. I think that's again the power of the product that you're proposing.
Yeah, I think the core of for something like this to become reality, what we need is a decentralized network or blockchain like Velocity, and that's what's probably we've been thinking about. And I believe we've also had similar discussions in the past about some of these problem statements, and we've been thinking about solving for this by creating a worm pool, but that requires a decentralized network where candidate can self-custody their credentials, and organizations can 100% rely on a credential which is shared about a candidate that, okay, this was actually issued by a reputed organization who is their peer in the industry, and not something which they need to rely on just candidate report, self-reporting, the way today it happens on the resume or LinkedIn or any of the other platforms. So in your, and you've been also, I would say, by the forefront of technology adoption in the IT services space, right? So what would be your kind of advice or your thoughts for the industry in terms of how they should go about adopting this technology? How any recommendations on that front?
I think it boils down to 2 or 3 things, right? The first one is the willingness, the openness, or giving up the fear of how efficient is my recruiting process, and can I have my recruiting processes results sit out there in the market. I think that confidence in the recruiting process, their own recruiting process, firms must demonstrate that. More importantly, when I come back to the point around willingness, the willingness to share the information ahead, right? Firms do a lot of proprietary stuff around competencies, around skill mix, and a whole lot there. How do you provide that information in a domain which is public based on a candidate's consent, right? So I think that is a step that organizations should take. That is the biggest step. That's the biggest leap that organizations will have to make in order to increase adoption. Now, what's in it for me? What's in it for the organizations really is a much faster recruiting process, a shorter, a much more efficient recruiting process, and a shorter recruiting cycle, and also the confidence that the candidate that I'm interviewing has been shortlisted by boutique firm ABC or marquee firms XYZ, right? That's going to be a huge game changer. For example, instance, the India IT industry literally takes us about 75 days, 60 to 75 days to hire a good, solid technology talent. It has to go down. The whole interview process, which is the lion's share of that life cycle, recruiting life cycle, that has to go down. It's a perfect solution. Yeah.
Wonderful. So, Vikrant, that I think the listeners could take away the fact that while it's a significant leap of faith for the industry, it's a practice which hasn't existed before, where you're cross-sharing your interview data or credentials about the candidates or your evaluation of the candidate. It could unlock significant potential for improving the efficiency of the hiring process, make hiring decisions a lot more valid, and also significantly faster, which I believe time to hire is probably one of the most important metric for the industry, given the nature of services it provides. So very excited to hear your thoughts on this, and thank you, and look forward to continuing these conversations with you, Vikrant.
Absolutely. Always a delight, Sanjoe.
Thank you, Sanjoe and Vikrant. That was amazing. And I do want to mention Talview has been a member of Velocity for just a few months, but has made incredible progress, has launched its solutions, and we're excited to see Talview and its customers as they go live and start benefiting from all the exciting opportunities that have been just presented in this session. I want to remind you, if any of you have questions, please post them in the chat. We're trying to continuously respond to those as quickly as possible. So I want to encourage you to do that. Our next speaker also to make some interesting announcements is Tarandeep Singh. Tarandeep is the global head of Aon Assessment. Tarandeep's going to share a little bit more about how Aon is moving forward on the Velocity Network to enable freshers graduating from BTech degrees and other relevant degrees for the IT industry to come into the market with their information in a way, in their data in a way that can be utilized for their careers and for organizations hiring. Taran, welcome.
Hi, we heard Draw talk about the broken labor market and how data can address, a seamless flow of data can really address this. So if data is the currency of digital world, I would argue that skills are the gold it is minted in. And I'll give two reasons for the same. If we step back not too far ago, maybe a decade or so, Garrett Camp conceived the idea of a ride-hailing cab service and a mobile app after he and his friends had to pay $800 to hire a private driver. So matching supply data with really the demands, which is the drivers and the hailers, he and Travis Kalanick built a multi-billion-dollar organization, which we today know as Uber. It changed the face of how people travel even today. Currently, I would argue that talent in logistics is digitizing supply chain data, the information that's out there. Similarly, corporate lawyer is really building digital infrastructure to handle copyright disputes using virtual litigation. And this confluence of data and skills is creating a flat talent border, which is really no barriers to how talent flows. And this is the one that promotes diversity, it shuns class barriers. Second, Aon, as we know, is a preeminent consulting and a data human capital organization. And one of the data that we study very closely is really the exit data. And more we have studied that over the years. In the last few years, people are resigning, the whole great resignation wave, and they are resigning for trying newer experiences. They are really looking for their own passion and drive. And more skilled the people are, it seems more resolved they are to really chase those dreams. So skills is also connecting the passion and purpose together. So therefore, as one can visualize, skills is really becoming the cornerstone of data, demographics, and diversity. This creates a level playing field, especially for the underserved communities and individuals. And this was also the reason why Aon got inspired to be part of the Velocity Network. We run, as an assessments firm, over 30 million assessments globally every year, which is such a rich pool of data. But unfortunately, that data is limited only to the employers who run those assessments. So therefore, it is not spread across for a wider good, either for the individual or for the multiple employers that could be using them, which really therefore forces individuals to take repeat assessments with every new opportunity that they come across. So by implementing a distributed ledger technology, the assessment results, they can be stored and they can be safely reused, and they remain a property of an individual as they move along. So late in 2021, Aon actually became the first of the 15 organizations that run the blockchain node for the Velocity network. And by hosting a copy of this blockchain ledger, today we are providing our computing power to the network, as well as contributing to the trust and confidence of the ecosystem. We followed this up in 2022 with the first use case to certify training and really for individuals who have taken Adept 15 as a course on which they are able to certify. Adept 15 is Aon's flagship personality assessment tool. It's in over 40 plus languages globally, and we run over 1 million times every year. So therefore, HR professionals who successfully conducted Adept 15 certification, they could now claim the certification via the Velocity Career Wallet, thus making it available for them. By the end of the current quarter, Q1 of 2023, we are bringing the next solution, which is the potential to code on the digital wallet. We know coding skills are extremely important, even though there are conversations and some bit of macroeconomic situations changing. However, companies are still looking at higher productivity, and therefore the ability or the potential to code is becoming as important as the true coding itself. Now, this particular assessment is able to assess for the same, and we hope and believe that individuals will now be able to use their potential to code results on the digital career wallet, thus enabling them to really take their skills higher, as well as showcase what they could do in future. So it's really, again, shunning some of the barriers that we talked about and creating more opportunities. Our next frontier, which is what we intend to do by Q3 of this year, would be to really bring our ecosystem in India, which is over 1,300 engineering institutes, closer to over 400 employers. The institutes will be able to pass an individual's education data, combine it with Aon's assessment data, and then move it along to an individual's career wallet, which is digital in nature. We also run a job board in the market with these 400 employers, and therefore it will give them access to not only the individual's profile, but a seamless information flow of how the results of their past assessments were, as well as credentializing their past. We believe as an ecosystem, as we come together with other partners in the Velocity network, this would advance our vision of democratizing opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Taran. I think Aon's plans in the world, but particularly in India, are incredibly important in terms of driving adoption. The fact that many freshers in engineering and other degrees coming into the market will have both their skills proof and their education credentials is a meaningful driver for many organizations to join this. It's a true win-win proposition for the individuals and for the organizations. So those were some of our organizations making announcements. I think our next two business leaders to speak are here to tell you why it has to happen now. So I hope by this point in our presentations, you're pretty convinced that the use of verifiable credentials on the Velocity network is a real game changer for the India industry as a whole and for IT services specifically, both for the individuals and for the organizations. Our next two speakers, I hope, will give you a little bit more insight into why do this now and why not just wait another few months or few years. Our next speaker is Ashok Bildikar, the chairman of Neeyamo, which Neeyamo is another member of Velocity for already 2 years. And Ashok will share his perspective on why this is the time to speak. Ashok recorded his session earlier. So Ashok, welcome to this event.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am from Neeyamo. Neeyamo is a global provider for verified credentials, and we are in this field for more than a decade. We have developed now a new technology called screen exchange, which is based on a blockchain infrastructure developed by Velocity Network. We were knowing a lot of challenges in this industry, and when Velocity Network came with this particular solution into the market, early on we jumped on it and we studied about it, we learned about it, we created certain pilots, and we developed the solution which is going to solve the challenges within the industry. There are a number of changes happening in our world around us. These changes include the changes like technology. World is moving from Web 2.0 to Web 3.0. Newer technology like blockchain, marketplaces, ChatGPT, if you look at it, all these new AI, ML based technologies are coming up, which are going to also impact the kind of a requirement which we are facing into the credentialing business. There are changes happening in mandates because of the changes into the employment, kind of a work environments, kind of a people have options now to do a different style of working. We are seeing in the last phase of the COVID, work from home emerged as a major trend. Then it started again work from office. Now what is trending is hybrid work. Some of the people are taking few days from work from home, few days work from office, and there are these changes will keep on happening. We have also seen a huge amount of global work shifting from one country to another country during this particular period, because now borders are not constrained in where you want to do the employment. And if we see all these changes which have happened around us has impact on the credentialing, verification of the employer, candidate, and the job options which people are opting for. Current solutions available in the market for credentialing verifications are very, very slow. They take anywhere between 7 days to 15 days to get the fulfillment completed. But they also have challenges which are time consuming. Number two, biggest problem with this current checks, they are very costly because the way they are done with the help of the manual interventions and quite a lot of human interventions here. So they are costly. If you look at it, also the third challenge which we are seeing in current situations, that there is a little flexibility available in the current solutions when credentialing verification is offered for customers, as well as little choice available for the candidate by themselves. Currently in the credentialing business, there are large sets of stakeholders involved. These stakeholders are diverse in nature. Stakeholders such as government agencies, courthouses, education institute, employers, and whatnot. This has huge amount of procedural delay happening in conducting these checks, as it comes under the regulation. In certain countries, we are not allowed to do certain kind of checks, and that becomes a constraint for a verification as well. Many places, the records of the government or the education institute or even employers are not digitized. What also means that it requires a last mile connectivity. If address verification has to be done in some remote place in the remote state like Andhra Pradesh, okay, the connecting there and getting this done, it become today a challenge by itself. If you look at verified credential as a business, it is growing extremely fast rate. The requirement for verifications are there across industries, and newer avenues are coming out. Example, financial institutes now makes it mandatory to have the KYC norms. Even tenant verification is becoming a big thing in India now. There are n number of places which we have seen the background verification is playing a major role. Every visa office nowadays does the complete background check about every application coming in their way. And these are the growths which are happening in this market. And this growing market requires a better, improved technology solution by which the current challenges are addressed effectively and a better solution is given to the customers. So in the current world where instant gratification is very, very important, people are looking for faster solution. The current approach, current methods, current solutions are not suitable. People are not happy about having those things the way they are. And we need to find out a better options for them in near future, Velocity Network started a very good initiatives of bringing the industry together, thinking of using blockchain to get the current challenges addressed. And Neeyamo became part of the Velocity Network initiative to work with them to address this challenge and find out a solution. Neeyamo, over the last 2 years, has developed a platform, screening exchange, which rides onto the Velocity Network backbone of blockchain and tries to solve the issues. This new platform and Velocity Network blockchain solution, we hope, reduces the number of hops, which is currently 3 to 4 to 0. The turnaround time from days to almost few milliseconds. The cost is going to be reduced because the manual interventions are going to change from the current method to the new method without any manual interventions. Credentials are going to go and sit and own by a candidate or an employee. So that makes it much easier to get the credentials checked at a phenomenal speed. With all these benefits, I am sure the verified credentialing, you will get instantaneous results for the customers who wants to verify any credentials for the newer employees or a candidate. You heard about problems, solutions available today to all of you. So what are you waiting for? Why not go ahead and start using latest technology to solve your credentialing issues? I think we are there. You can reach out to Velocity Network to go and take the next step. As mentioned, Neeyamo operates in the global HR space. Besides the credentialing of the verifications, we also do a global payroll. And I find that the same technology like blockchain can be even used in addressing the major challenge in the global payroll about payment disbursement. I'm sure, and let's wait for those solutions to emerge to solve the challenges for the employer around the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ashok. That was marvelous. Our last speaker for today is Naresh Prajapati, the founder and CEO of Azilen Technologies, another member of the Velocity Network Foundation. I want to remind you that when Naresh concludes his session, please stay on this Zoom call. We have a present for you, and we'll give you instructions on how to claim your first digital verifiable career credential. Naresh, welcome.
Hello everyone. It's my pleasure to address this elite forum for our call to action. Indian IT service is contributing 8% of GDP and employs more than 5 million professionals, growing at 10% CAGR. It's nobody's guess that the background checks is a big problem, and self-sovereign verifiable credential can solve this problem for good. However, there is a layer in between. So let me tell you a little story. Few hundred years back, there was a village, and villagers used to believe that there are human beings living on the moon, and they wanted to contact them, but there was no way. One day, someone gave them an idea. What if we all get together and one particular moment we shout hello all together, so the combined amplitude will reach to the moon? They loved this idea. So one day they all gathered. There were thousands of them. There was an old man, and he thought, see these young people around? They are shouting and they are cheering up. I am an old man, and my voice is feeble anyway, so I am not going to add to the cause. There were children around, and they thought, no one takes us seriously, so let's play and enjoy. There were young people, and they thought different reason to think otherwise. The moment came, and it was a pin drop silence. So this story is relevant today. If we think others are going to do it and our effort is insignificant, it will never happen. It requires effort in adoption. Adoption, that's what our call to action is. The technology piece is done to the large extent, workflows are done, interoperability is taken care. It's time to concentrate our energies for adoption. And this will empower the Indian workforce, and the same is true for everywhere. It solves a massive, massive problem. What we are doing at Azilen? One, we are bringing employment credentials for our 400 plus team members issued on Velocity. And two, we do hundreds of trainings and meetups in the region. We are going to issue the training and meetup certificates on Velocity. Along with this, we are helping companies to build their custom wallets. We are helping companies to set up their credential agents and various different integrations. We are happy to contribute and help the fraternity if they require any help in these areas. At Azilen, we are committed to make it happen. It requires a joint effort. We are privileged that this revolution is happening in our generation. Let's make it happen together. Thank you once again for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that last message was important to reiterate. Let's make it happen together. From my experience speaking with organizations all around the world and in India, it's pretty clear that by this time in the session, you all listening here understand what Velocity does and have got the impression from many of our members that there are solutions out there just waiting for you to take advantage of them. Some of you, like the example that was just given, the story that was just given, are saying to yourselves, yeah, this is cool, this is interesting, but I don't want to be first. We'll wait until everybody else is shouting to the moon, or in our case, until everyone else is using verifiable credentials, and then we'll join. If you're in that group, well, I'll look forward to speaking with you again in a year or two. But I'm hoping that most of you on this call are here because you're innovators, because you're early adopters, because you want to drive change in your industry and see the opportunity to do so. So if you're in that group, what to do now? So please contact your existing partners who are on this call. Many other of the large IT services, background screening companies and others are either already members of the Velocity Network Foundation or are considering joining. Speak to them and join and discuss this with them, or just contact us. Any of the Velocity Foundation members are available and happy to engage with you and find the right solutions based on Velocity that will serve your purpose. And with that, I know you're all excited to get your first verifiable credential. So please, if you have not yet downloaded a wallet, please do so. If you have, just open your wallet, and once you're in the wallet, at the top of the main screen, you'll have a button that says Scan QR Code. Press that, and when the camera opens up, you'll scan the QR code that's available here on the screen on the bottom right. Once you've scanned that, you'll have the app will take you through a number of steps to submit an email, share the email that you verified, and accept the terms and conditions. And once you've done that, you will get an offer from the Velocity Network Foundation for the badge you see here of attendance of the Velocity IT Services launch event today, February 8th. We're hoping that you enjoyed the experience today, that you've learned a lot, and we're looking forward to be engaged with you directly and through your existing software and services partners to bring this amazing innovation to India and work with you to drive adoption. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we look forward to working with you and being in touch with you in the very near future. Have a wonderful day.